I think it's just an overall philosophy and an overall vision for the team. The way we're going to play the game, I think, is important. The way, the culture in the clubhouse, everything outside of the things that we need to address, from a player standpoint, just our, ability to make adjustments. I've said it many times, but our growth, our learning in our players, and we have a very young team. So that's a big one for me. Obviously, we need to win today, but also not at the expense of what we're going to do a year from now. So I just, my biggest focus with this team is to obviously get them to have a style of play that's going to be successful today and 5 years from now.
You said you're not going to put a limit on the team, I guess, and success, but and JD yesterday said this is not a tank situation. So how do you
our team, and if you ask every player on our team, which I've had the luxury of, that a lot of them are in Dallas, and had many conversations with our guys already. They got a little chip on their shoulder. I don't like to put expectations on how many wins per se we're going to have. I want our guys to compete, and I want our guys to obviously understand how they're successful, how they're going to be successful, and adjust the flaws that they've had in the past. And we're going to address all those things. And I think it's, when you talk about winning games, there's a way we're going to have to play the game to be competitive. And it doesn't matter who we're playing or when we're playing. Our guys are going to go out there with, hopefully a conviction about, themselves that it doesn't matter. And that's obviously our recipe for success now. It's going to be our recipe for success when we have all the pieces in place to put a championship team together. So I've said it before, but installing that championship belief now is really important. And, I've been very, very, I wouldn't say surprised, very optimistic after learning kind of who our guys are and what they're about and how much desire and how much care they have for one another. It's been really inspiring for me to hear that in return, because these guys, they want to win. And they're not happy with the fact that, a lot of people don't expect us to win, which I think is great.
How do you view the challenge that your team faces putting together a major league pitching staff next year?
Yeah, it is a challenge. I know JD has mentioned it many times. We got to be creative. Obviously we're not done yet. We got some, work we might do some things here, we might not. Moving forward, we're going to have to obviously deal with who we have, and hopefully we have some depth. We're going to rely on some young arms. We're going to have to, get them along, I guess, wherever they're at right now. We're going to have to push them forward. As long as we keep pushing the needle forward with these guys, they're going to be in better shape. And some of them might be put in situations where, in other teams, they might not be in that situation.
So when you took this job, or when you went into the interview, you probably knew this team had challenges in front of it. Now that you've had a month or so in the organization, is the challenge greater than you thought?
I don't think it's greater than I thought. I think we're in a lot better shape than I thought, because I didn't know. Obviously I had a lot of other things going on with the World Series and stuff. I love what this team is about internally, not only from JD's standpoint, the front office standpoint, but the players. There is a care there that it's really hard to create that, and that's the one thing that I believe in probably more than anything is that culture, that care about one another, and they have it. And that's, obviously, it's going to get us through a lot of difficult times. There's going to be a lot of adversity, and I've told our players that no matter what team you play on. I mean, I played on a World Series team last year, and we had more adversity than I've ever seen, in a season. So, to say that we're not going to have adversity, we'd be kidding ourselves. I think these guys are ready for that. I think that's my biggest thing as manager of this team is we're going to have to deal with things that we're not comfortable with, whether it's on the field, whether it's off the field. Young players struggling, never having gone through the struggles that they're going to go through, and that's our job as a staff and my job as a manager to kind of push them through that and make sure they come out better in the end.
Have any concerns about any of that? What's your perspective on what
I think we've obviously looked at our pitching staff that we have now, and the pitching staff that we might have opening day, and we can't really. I couldn't tell you today because I don't know what our pitching staff is going to be, but there will be. We won't have 5 starters that we can rely on to go 120 pitches. I don't think anybody in baseball has that. So what we're going to have to do is decide certain days where. Whether it's a piggyback situation, whether it's a opener, our best way forward to try to get, a W that day. And I think, get to maximize every guy we have. And, to say we're going to send a guy out there for 80 pitches, when he's only good one time through, maybe we can develop into being good 2 times through or 3 times through, maybe. I mean, that's where we are right now. And it's like we can't ignore the fact that, some of these numbers and, things make sense. And I don't want our pitchers to think that they have to do something that they're not capable of. I want to maximize what they're capable of right now and maybe push them forward to maybe be more than that later on. Maybe in a month, maybe in 2 months, they can develop into a 2-time through the lineup guy.
But in terms of concerns, based on what traditional roles are, those are gone.
I wouldn't say they're gone. I would ideally like that. I mean, I want to develop a guy into 100-pitch, 7-inning guy. I want to be able to rely on a guy to go out there for that many, but I'm not going to ignore what some of the numbers say. And I think the important thing is for our players to understand it too. I think that's the thing that, a lot of players get frustrated with nowadays because they're not informed. I don't mind informing our guys. If you struggle the second time through, let's figure out why. Let's dig into why. Is it, does velocity drop? Does the spin rate drop? There's a lot of factors now. Are you, in shape? Can your arm handle it? There's a lot of things that we can address with them to help them get through that second time. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think we've obviously looked into them. We've had a lot of people look at them. I think JD would probably know more than I would, but it's obviously an avenue we're looking at right now, and I guess we'll see. I'm not sure where we stand on it at the moment, but it sounds like from everything I've read that he would be a pretty good asset to have. Yep. It's a pretty dynamic player. Yeah, Ohtani's pretty dynamic. Obviously, we're not going to face him this year from a pitching standpoint. We'll have to get him out. But to see what he did last year was pretty impressive. I wasn't convinced to start the year. From a hitting standpoint, I didn't know how he'd hit because, the pitching thing, it takes a toll on your body. I didn't think the timing was going to be there, but he proved me and a lot of other people wrong. And, hats off to him because he had a pretty spectacular year last year.
There have been some non-traditional coaching staff hires in baseball recently. Pitching and hitting analytics advanced has been a big reason. What are your thoughts on that?
I've talked to a lot of people about this over the last little while. I wouldn't say I'm a heavy, proponent of all analytics, all data, but I guess my best analogy would be to say, when you have information available, why not use it? If I was going to gamble and I was going to put, millions of dollars at stake, why wouldn't I use every bit of information that allows me to have an advantage? And I think, the thing that I want to kind of dispel with our players is that our front office and the players are separate. I know that I've played for and coached for organizations where a lot of players had that, belief that everything was kind of designed to go against them as opposed to help them. I want our players to know that everything we do is designed to help them. Every, number we crunch is, we're going to use it to our advantage and they're going to use it to their advantage, whether it's from, analytical data, biomechanical data, anything we can get our hands on to make them more efficient and just better players. I think they're going to adopt that and I want them to learn about this stuff because it's important. I would love it if I was a player right now. I would be all in to understanding it, not only to understand your weaknesses, but also your strengths. What do I do that's better than everybody else in the league? and why am I having so much success? So that way we can have sustained success and not just in the short term.
Your coaching staff, your eight coaches have very little major league playing experience. That would be ridiculous to say that Don Wakamatsu does not have major league experience, but
Yeah.
the fact that your coaching staff has played so little in the major league, does that cross your mind at all?
We've addressed it. I mean, it came up in conversation. It doesn't bother me because I know as a major league player for a long time, the best coaches I ever had, most of them never played in the big leagues or maybe played in the big leagues for a short amount of time. So I think the ability to connect, the ability to, the quality of the person, the character of the person, the kind of culture we're trying to create, and then the knowledge base. These are some of the finest people I've ever been around. When we interviewed them, they blew me away, all of them. And some of them I had prior experience with, some of them I didn't know at all. So, when you hear these guys speak and you hear how they communicate, and I know as a player, former player, that this is going to resonate. This is going to, these guys are going to buy into this. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the best players arguably make some of the not the best coaches, just because they have a hard time explaining. They have a hard time understanding that guys can't do what they used to do. And when you're a lesser player, or maybe a minor leaguer, or kind of like myself, when you're just kind of an average to below average big league player, you have to grind so hard. You have to learn about everything, and so your knowledge base is a lot greater than some of the greater players because you have to look outside of your own world. And that honestly has been my, I've had a lot of success in relating to almost every type of player, any, pitcher, catcher, infielder, outfielder, any type from wherever they are in the world. I've always had that ability to relate with that because I've had to look outside myself so much to try to be successful in my own way. So I think that our staff is obviously very diverse staff, very knowledgeable staff, and tremendous human beings. And I think our players are really going to enjoy the time that they spend with them, and they're going to learn a lot from them. Yeah. Yep.
Going into the managerial job, you both have kind of similar backgrounds. You were around for a long time in the big leagues, never managed in the minor leagues, never managed anywhere, then went right into the job. Just wondering if there were any common conversations that we had as players about what the future might hold and whether or not, like, you reached out to him for, pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah, I think we've talked ever since we stopped playing. He got the bullpen coach job in Cleveland, and I was in Seattle. And, we kept in touch and, very, very similar, I guess, personalities. And I picked his brain. He was obviously on the pitching side. He was a catcher. So we had many conversations. He was one of the first guys I reached out to. And I will talk to him at some point, obviously. I haven't had a chance to yet, but, I will pick his brain on just the things that he's had to go through as a young manager and, first-year manager. And then now he's however many years he's been. I feel like it's been almost 5 already. It's crazy. And he's younger than me, which is, yeah. But there's been a lot of other players that have played for him, that have come through, where I've been in contact with. And, I've heard their comments about him. And, I'm not surprised by his success, just put it that way. He's always kind of pushing the needle forward. He's not afraid to, very open-minded, very respectful, loves the information. He's just a great person to be around. I knew his culture would be great when I first played against him in Tampa. We played against that team, and that team, I feel like we beat them, but the style that they played with, I knew that they were going to be successful. Mm-hmm.
I was curious, just generally speaking, teams have become so good at aligning their defenses. Pitcher stuff is just so good in general. What do you think that there's maybe some room for growth on the run creation side?
Absolutely.
Catch up with everything that's been done in the run prevention.
100%, yeah.
Room for like teams to look at that differently, think a little bit differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We need to explore everything to make ourselves successful. So, I've talked to all of our offensive guys, and every guy's different. I got, my discussion with Delano DeShields is different than obviously with Joey Gallo, and but the I guess the reason is the same. We need to score runs. We need to find a way to understand why Justin Verlander is getting us out, how he's getting us out, where he's getting us out, and then if we have the option, with 2 strikes or with runners in scoring position to expose the defense, we should obviously look into that. But not only, mentally look into it, but physically understand how we're going to accomplish that. Because there's 2 separate things there. I can tell Joey Gallo all day to hit a ground ball to left field, but he's got to have a physical way of doing it. And it's something that he has to actually practice. Now, I'm not asking Joey Gallo to hit a ground ball to left field, unless the situation calls for it. And he understands that. His biggest asset is to hit the ball in the seats. So I'm like, let's figure out a way to be more successful and more efficient in the zone to do that. You know what I mean? Whereas, Delano DeShields, I don't want him to hit, 80% ground balls, because the way teams defend now, they're going to figure out where he's hitting it and he's going to be out. So we still need even Delano DeShields to drive the baseball and know how to do that, from a physical standpoint, from a mental, from a plan standpoint. So we got to try to stay a step ahead of everybody, and it's somewhat easier nowadays because guys are so specific in the way they pitch. So if a guy has a TrackMan, pitch, he's going to use it. And that's the beautiful thing. If we're facing Lance McCullers, we know he's going to throw curveballs. Our guys need to know that. They need to understand where we're going to look for it, where we're going to look for it to start, what pitch are we going to look for and where. So there's a lot of information that we're going to dig into, and I feel like our staff, our 2 hitting guys are 2 of the best I've ever been around, especially Louis. Louis is on another planet for me, just in, his mental ability to reason and get messages through to players. It's phenomenal. Of course, yeah. And then, like I said, from having the ability to physically do it, and that's where, Krabby, our assistant guy, he's very, very talented, biomechanical, mechanical type hitting coach, which, will get our players to have a plan in how to do it and how to execute it. It's one thing just to think about it and to say, I'm going to do it, but if you can't physically do it, you're going to get exposed. And I think that's where a lot of our guys were the last couple of years. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, and that's, yeah, and we talked, Lou and I talked at length about this, and Julio on the pitching side, specifically designing game plans for guys, understanding, it's not just about, okay, we're facing this guy, this is how he's going to pitch us, and we move on with our day. Every single guy has to have an individual plan of how to attack Justin Verlander or whoever we're facing. They need to know their strengths and how they match up with his strengths. And, maybe some guys are visual. Maybe some guys want more just analytical data. Maybe, so we need to personalize it for them. But I also want to challenge them. I don't want to just let them say, I'm a visual guy and not ever learn the analytical side. So my job is to always keep pushing them. Now, they might be uncomfortable with some of these things at first, but maybe they don't realize in the end, I am an analytical guy. This is going to help me more than the visual, even though I might think visual is my strength. So, I just want to make them exposed to it. I want them to learn. I want our guys to study this and understand it and believe in it. So when they step out on the field, the last thing they worry about is competing. That's it. I mean, we still got to compete. All the numbers are numbers, but we still got to go out and compete. And I think that's what the most important thing is when we step on the field. I have. I mean, just for fun exercises, I guess. But I haven't really dug into it, as far as, what makes the most sense. Obviously, I will use some numbers to kind of back up some of those things. I don't necessarily believe in like a set lineup every day, but I do think there's some consistency there that helps. So I think players tend to be a little more successful when there's a little more consistency. Not to say that I won't change the batting order or that they shouldn't be ready to change the batting order. But I don't know if I'm going to go 9 different guys every day, in different order. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I owe it to, as being a former player, like I appreciated it when I knew kind of where I was going to stand. But at the same time, I was always ready for anything, and they got to be ready.
Do you like look at Chu at the top line, a high on base guy?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, yeah, they would make sense. You know, even Delano with some speed. You know, if he gets on base more, then that obviously makes sense. It's just pressure. I think the one thing that, you know, I've addressed to our team is, you know, everything we do from a hitting standpoint, from a base running standpoint, from a pitching standpoint, is all pressure. I just want to apply the most pressure possible, you know, in the most efficient way on the other team, and they should know that. And, you know, our guys, it takes the results out of it. You know, like I said, you can't look at things as win-loss. We got to go out and compete, and when we execute, we're going to give ourselves a chance to win. And when they're defined by their process, they're not going to get caught up in big moments. They're going to look forward to big moments. They're going to be able to, you know, start that belief now. You know, whether we win 70, 80, 90, doesn't, you know, they're going to obviously have a plan for when we do turn the corner and we do become a championship team, that we can handle those big moments and those big at-bats. Oh, sorry.
A couple more.
I'll go ahead. What's that?
Run production, run reduction, questions like that.
Yes.
On the run production side, you guys have had several of the players who have been most heavily shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Shift seems to be a real issue of discussion. I think one of your players actually has to stand up for elimination. What's your stance on that? What's your stance with your players about what happened?
Yeah, the whole shift thing, that's never going to go away. I mean, I've heard talks about that. I just don't see how they can do it. And they might. I don't know. Maybe they do it. And then we'd have to adjust. I think it's up to each of our players to kind of, that kind of goes along with how they're pitching you, is also how they're defending you. So, you know, I guess Joey's kind of the one. Obviously, I know that's, you know, we did it in L.A. We actually put 4 outfielders out there, 1 at bat. Because we looked at all the information and we just felt like it made the most sense to, if he hits a ground ball to left field, we're doing our job. You know what I mean? So, you know, I've talked to him about it a little bit. It's not that I want him to hit a ground ball to left field. It's, you know, when the situation calls for it, you know, runner on second, 2 outs, and there's nobody on the left side of the field. If he hits a ball off his left index finger, like, it's not a bad move, you know what I mean, because he's going to get a base hit and we're going to score a run. So, and he understood that. He completely understood that. I just don't want to define him as a, you know, hey, you got to beat the shift every time. You know, if you're doing your job, you're going to be more efficient in the zone to hitting the ball in the air. You know, maybe not as high of a trajectory. Maybe we're going to lower that a little bit just to make him, you know, have a little bit more opportunity to drive the baseball out of the ballpark. But everybody else is going to, along those lines, you know, Nomar, you know, gets shifted. Odor gets shifted. All these, we got a ton of lefties, so, you know, Chu gets shifted at times. So when it's there and when it's available, you know, sometimes with 2 strikes, I think that's going to be a big one, you know, to maybe have that option available. But like I said, they physically have to know how they're going to accomplish that. It's one thing to say it, but it's another to actually know how to do it, especially on high fastballs, high spin fastballs. It's really hard to get on top of those pitches, so they got to have a physical way of doing it. And that's something that we will address for sure.
Are you putting together your pitching staff with the idea that Jose Leclerc will definitely be your closer?
It's hard to. I don't want to say he's our best. He's one of our best pitchers. Let's just put it that way. I would love to have a staff where everything lines up where he's just our closer every day. But he might be too valuable to pitch more than 1 inning. We don't want to just limit him to however many outings as our closer, where, you know, we could maybe pitch him 2 or 3 innings if he's capable of that. So I think to limit him just to say he's our closer, I don't think it's fair to him. He's going to be our best pitcher in the biggest situations, the highest leverage situations he might be pitching in, whether it's the 7th inning or whether it's the 9th inning. I think that's kind of where we're at now. Now, it depends when the season starts, opening day, if that's how it lines up and he's just our closer, great, because that means we have a pretty significant staff. But if we have to be creative, like I said, he might be more of a 2-inning guy, maybe a 2 or 3 inning guy that, you know, can pitch some significant innings for us, you know, which gives us more of a chance to win more games.